Okay, we're gonna get ready to get started.
Do you want me to let the public in? Hello?
All right. At this time, I would like to ask our IT professionals to start the audio tape recordings of the regular meeting and to admit any members of the public who have chosen to listen to the meeting online, and I'll pause for a verbal confirmation.
IT has let the public in and the recording has started.
Recording in progress.
Thank you. My name is Lisa Washington, and I serve as Interim General Counsel and Assistant Secretary of the Housing Authority of the City of Atlanta, Georgia, also known as Atlanta Housing. Before this regular meeting is called to order, please consider the following announcements. We welcome the members of the public who have joined us in person at Roosevelt Hall, located at 660 Atlanta Student Movement Boulevard, Southwest Atlanta, Georgia, for this regular meeting of the Board of Commissioners of Atlanta Housing. We also welcome the members of the public who have joined this meeting via audio conference. There is also an option to view the meeting live streamed. Members of the public can find the link in the notices section on the Atlanta Housing website. The live streaming link is also contained on Atlanta Housing board docs. Please be advised that any members of the public who wish to address the board during this time for public comment period must have signed up on the public speaker's sign-up sheet at the front door of the meeting room prior to the time the meeting is called to order, or have sent in a comment by the time set in the notice of the meeting. A link to the meeting agenda, board resolutions, and presentation materials are available for review by the public by accessing the link on the Atlanta Housing website at www.atlantahousing.org/notices.
My name is Larry Stewart, and I serve as the Chair of the Board of Commissioners. I now am calling this regular meeting of the Board of Commissioners of the Housing Authority of the City of Atlanta, Georgia, to order. Today is Wednesday, April 24th, 2024, and the time is 2:09 p.m. Will the interim general counsel take the roll and determine a quorum for the meeting?
Chairman Stewart.
Present.
Commissioner Kirsch.
Here.
Commissioner Alvarado.
Here.
Commissioner Elliott.
Here.
Commissioner Faruqi. Commissioner Faruqi. Commissioner Hooker. Commissioner Hooker. Commissioner Martin.
Here.
Mr. Chair, there is a quorum present.
All right. The agenda has been presented to the board for review and comment. Are there any proposed changes to the agenda? All right, hearing none, may I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So move.
And second? Second. All right, so moved by Commissioner Alvarado and seconded by Commissioner Elliott. Is there any discussion? Hearing no further discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion is carried.
Okay. The minutes of the regular Board of Commissioners meeting held on March 27, 2024 are before the board for review and comment. Are there any proposed corrections to the minutes of the regular Board of Commissioners meeting?
All right. May I have hearing none, no proposed corrections, may I have a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting held on March 27, 2024? All right, I heard a second. All right, so moved by Commissioner Alvarado and seconded by Commissioner Elliott. Is there any discussion related to the motion to approve the minutes from the March 27th meeting? Hearing no further discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. I didn't hear any opposition or any abstentions. The motion is carried. Members of the public who wish to address the board signed up on the public speaker sign-up sheet as they entered the meeting. Each speaker who has signed up will be called to the podium and will have 3 minutes to address the board. After those members of the public who are here to speak finish, we will read any questions received in advance by telephone or email. Are any members of the public signed up to speak?
Mr. Chair, no members of the public signed up before the meeting commenced, nor did we receive any comments via email or phone in advance.
All right, well then that means that we have ended, this will end the public comment portion of the meeting, and we will go into resolutions.
Okay. Commissioners, before you is a copy of the resolution number 2425, where the Housing Authority of the City of Atlanta, Georgia seeks approval to enter an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Atlanta related to the implementation of the fiscal year 2022 Choice Neighborhood Implementation Grant for Bowen Homes.
All right, may I have a motion to consider Resolution 2425? Second? May I have a second?
Second.
All right, so moved by Commissioner Elliott and seconded by Commissioner Kirsch. Trish O'Donnell, good to see you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Trish O'Connell, Deputy Chief Real Estate Officer, Planning and Development. So this is a very straightforward resolution. We're asking for the authorization to execute an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Atlanta that outlines the roles and responsibilities, leverage funding, including a $960,000 payment of choice neighborhood funds from AH to the COA for a senior policy analyst. And I have been asked to be brief, so I'm going to kind of speed through this, but please stop me if there's some additional information needed. So you see the context map, you all have seen that many times, of the redevelopment of the site with 2,000 units, eventually in Almond Park and Cary Park, Council District 9, Council Member Dustin Hillis' district, and PUG. Next slide, please. And so this IGA is really just a fulfillment of what was promised in the Choice Neighborhood Implementation Grant. There was a partnership agreement as part of that submission between the City of Atlanta and AH and ultimately HUD as part of the submission that outlined our roles and responsibilities. And the city is, of course, the neighborhood implementation lead, and so it's very specific for that, and they committed the leverage funds. And so once we entered into the grant agreement in September, part of what we needed to do was to enter into an IGA to actually allow the funds to flow back and forth. That's really all that this does. Next slide, please. And so in this, one of the key things that HUD particularly liked and that we liked is that Choice Neighborhoods actually operates out of the mayor's office. And so this will be a position inside the mayor's office. It will be $960,000 over an 8-year term, maybe 7.5 now. And the city will actually be providing some supporting funding for that position as well. They will provide project management. They've actually already been doing it, but this will allow them to actually hire a position specifically for that purpose. Next slide, please. This is just a little quick summary of the funding that's committed. Just to remind you, you all committed $61,337,657. And we intend to spend every penny of that or more to transform this neighborhood. In the Choice Neighborhood Funds, of the $40,960,000 is specifically inside of the budget to do that. And then, of course, the city committed a tremendous amount of money, $17,773,233 from the City of Atlanta and $10 million from Invest Atlanta. And that's really to go for public infrastructure, both on the Bowen side and inside of the Cary Park neighborhood, with the $4 million in CDBG funding. We're actually coordinating with the city right now on an application of CDBG funding for the first round to cover the phase 1 and 2 infrastructures for the first phase of development. They've already given us $1 million, not inside of this $4 million, as additional money. Next slide, please. And so with that, we are requesting your authorization again to execute this intergovernmental agreement with the City of Atlanta that will outline the roles, responsibilities, and leverage funding, plus the $960,000 for this position. Any questions?
I just have one question. So is this senior policy analyst, is this a new role? Or are we just funding someone who's already in that position now? Is it net new or?
Great question. It's a new role. So Susan Rutherford has actually been doing it under David Edwards. And so this will actually free Susan up to do some of the broader transformation initiatives that the mayor is looking at doing.
All right, any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I will call for the vote. All in favor of this motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Didn't hear any opposition or any abstention. The motion is carried.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you.
Okay. Commissioners, before you is a copy of the resolution number 2426, where the Housing Authority of the City of Atlanta, Georgia seeks approval of business terms and authorization to submit a United States Department of Housing and Urban Development rental assistance demonstration financing plan and provide commitments for RAD and non-RAD Section 18 blend project-based voucher housing assistance, a loan commitment, and an option to ground lease in support of the 4% low-income housing tax credit application for Ashley Collegetown 1.
I have a motion to consider Resolution 2426. Nobody rush? May I have a second?
Second.
All right, may I have, so moved by Commissioner Elliott and seconded by Commissioner Alvarado. Mike Wilson, you have the floor.
All right, thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioners. We're here to talk about Ashley Collegetown. Lisa really summarized, and let's go to the first slide, the series of authorizations we're requesting. But the key point is we're requesting a commitment to make a loan of 57 years, so $8,276,000, our form of rental subsidy, and we're providing an option for a ground lease and being able to submit a RAD financing plan when the time comes to HUD. Next slide, please. Ashley Collegetown 1, to give you an overview of it, it was originally developed as part of our Hope 6 grant revitalization of Harris Homes. There's a mix of public housing units with tax credits, tax credit only, and market rate units for a total of 199. The current owner is Harris Redevelopment Partnership 1 LP. It's in Council District 4 in NPUT. Next slide, please. So, as what's proposed for renovation, it will consist of, again, a mix of affordable and tax credit market rate units. And I want to emphasize that the level of affordability will be maintained after renovation. They're just doing a little bit of restructuring to make it work. As part of the renovation, they're going to have to sell the improvements to a new owner entity, which is called Ashley Collegetown 1 LP. It's going to be financed in part using tax-exempt bonds and 4% low-income housing tax credits. Next slide, please. Here's the unit mix laid out in a little more detail, 199 units, as I said. Next slide. Sources and uses, you can see the total of both sources and uses, about $40 million. I'll call your attention to our second mortgage, was $8,276,060. Next slide, please. So again, we're proposing us that we make a loan of $8,276,060. We're restructuring our existing debt to roll over the principal and waive accrued interest in accordance with our debt forgiveness policy, which the board approved several years ago. The construction period of the loan will be 24 months, and the permanent period will be 55 years for a total of 57 years. The loan will be at 1% interest during construction and also during the permanent period, but serviced by a 25% share of cash flow. Next slide, please. Integral's been consulting with the residents. Back in March, they've had several meetings to talk with them about the proposed renovation. Next slide, please. So again, we're recommending authorization to approve the business terms related to Ashley Collegetown 1, provide the required commitments, and be able to submit a financing plan to HUD. And I'll stop right there and see if you have any questions.
All right, any comments? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So one question and one comment. The one question I have is, I'm very familiar with the property since it sits right across from my alma mater, but I'm curious, I know this is about renovation, but is there any additional lands around Collegetown that could lead to expansion. I say that only because there is a significant need for affordable housing around Atlanta University Center. And if we already have something that is a proven proof of concept and there's lands around, whether AH owns or if the Atlanta University Center owns or Morehouse owns, it'd be great to, if that possibility exists. That's one. And the second, I just wanted to note this past weekend, and I know Commissioner Kirsch was there as well, attended, and our CEO was at the mayor's neighborhood summit, and in the and in the housing breakout session, they talked about how there was just a low amount of 3-bedroom housing units available in the city, and the fact that you had some here, I wanted to note that for the record, that this is another example of Atlanta Housing recognizing the need of the people of Atlanta and working to try to satisfy that. So I wanted to make sure that that was lifted up.
Okay. Well, I'll note your second comment. I guess responding to your question, though, the opportunity to do additional development around it, there's actually some vacant land that's remaining from the original Harris homes, and you may recall that Terry talked about a settlement we had with the Integral Group around what's going to happen with that land. So that gives an opportunity to provide the kind of expansion that you're talking about.
Thank you, Mike. And if I could, as we stated in the last board meeting, we'll be working with Integral to come back to our board to share their development plans and activities on the 54 acres. And as Mike stated, there is a portion that's associated not just with Collegetown and Harris Homes, but really with all the Integral sites across the city. So we will come back to provide a comprehensive review as to what the development plans and activities will be on those sites. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Yeah.
The residents that are presently living there, are they going to be relocated? Do you know if they're going to be relocated away from the property, or they're going to be placed in vacant units?
Yeah, they're going to try to do what we call checkerboarding. They're going to move around the vacant units to accommodate the renovation. You're welcome.
All right, any other comments or questions? All right, hearing no further discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. I didn't hear any abstentions or opposition, so the motion carries.
All right, thank you.
Okay, Commissioners, before you is a copy of Resolution Number 2427, where the Housing Authority of the City of Atlanta, Georgia seeks approval of business terms and authorization to submit a United States Department of Housing and Urban Development Rental Assistance Demonstration, known as RAD, financing plan, and provide commitments for RAD and non-RAD Section 18 blend, project-based voucher housing assistance, a loan commitment, and an option to ground lease in support of the 4% low-income housing tax credit application for Capital Gateway 1.
All right, I have a motion to consider Resolution 2427.
Second.
All right, so moved by Commissioner Elliott and seconded by Commissioner Kirsch. Mike Wilson, you are back up.
Keep standing next time. So Lisa told you about the authorizations, which was very similar to the Ashley Collegetown for our form of rental assistance, our option for a ground lease, our loan, in this case, which is $10 million, a little under $10.3 million, and we want to submit a RAD financing plan to HUD when the time becomes for that to happen. One thing I didn't mention when I talked about Ashley Collegetown, both of these projects have actually already been awarded taxes and bonds and 4% credits, and they're needing to provide commitments to DCA to help finalize that process. Next slide, please. Here's Capital Gateway 1. It's not far from the state capitol, as the name implies. It was originally developed as part of the capital revitalization of Capitol Homes under another one of our Hope 6 grants. Mix of public housing, tax credit only, and market rate units totaling 269. The current owner is Capital Gateway Redevelopment Partnership 1, LP. It's in NPUV and Council District 1. Next slide, please. After renovation, again, they're going to maintain the same level of affordability under a little different arrangement doing the RAD program. The property is going to need to be sold to a new owner entity. The renovation is going to be financed in part using taxes and bonds and a 4% low-income housing tax credit that I talked about a little earlier. Next slide, please. Here's a little more detail on the mix of units. Again, the same level of affordability. Next slide, please. A little bit about sources and uses, or permanent sources and uses, and it's $57 million total, and I'll call your attention to our loan of $10,266,096. And again, that's not a new loan. We're basically rolling over the loan we made so many years ago. Next slide, please. In our loan terms, we're providing $10,266,096 for construction and permanent, 24-month term, construction term, and 55-year permanent term for a total of 57 years. Interest only during construction at 1%, and then a permanent period will still be 1%, but be serviced by a 25% share of net cash flow. Next slide, please. I'm going through this briskly because I was asked to, by the way. So the new owner entity is going to pay, in terms of other business terms, 25% of their net developer fee. Will receive an asset management fee of 1%. Will receive a right of first refusal and a purchase option. Next slide, please. Like with Ashley Collegetown, Integrals met with the residents of Capitol Gateway back in March to advise and consult with them about the renovation. Next slide, please. So what we're recommending is board approval of proposed business terms for Capitol Gateway 1 RAD conversion, and to be able to provide the required commitments for submission of a financing plan to HUD. And I'll pause right there and see if we have any questions. Yes, sir.
So just, I know the purpose of this and the prior resolution, but both deal with what's the word, renovations to existing properties.
Yes.
And I'll just speak for myself, that it'd be good if I just had a little more clarity as to what renovation meant. Like, a question that was popping in my head was, I wonder if renovation includes units being more energy efficient and modernized.
Yes.
And if it does, then we should state that categorically, because that shows that we're being sustainable and resilient in regards to our renovation, and we're being more forward-thinking with regards to the modernization of our properties, right?
Okay.
So I think this is a great platform in order to highlight the innovative approaches that we're taking regarding renovation. Because if I say renovation, somebody might think sheetrock and plaster and paint, and it's more sophisticated than that, more thought out than that.
Right.
And I want us to be able to use this opportunity to articulate how we're enhancing the quality of life through renovation.
Okay, yeah, I'll make sure to call attention to that next time. But yeah, it's going to be a very substantial renovation, not just a little painting and that sort of thing. And part of the requirements that DCA has when you get tax credits, you have to provide a certain level of energy efficiency, sustainability. So that's going to be a feature in pretty much all our projects.
I think another point, and Mike did briefly speak about this, that we should note is the fact that the two properties that were identified have already reached their expiration on the low-income housing tax credit, under the low-income housing tax credit affordability period. And so this is an opportunity for us to continue, instead of losing units, to preserve the opportunity for affordability with these two particular developments. And as you know, we're actually losing more units a year than we can actually build. And so for us, as much as we want new development, we also want to encourage the opportunity for preservation in order to retain our existing housing stock of affordable units.
All right. Any other comments? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor of this motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. I did not hear any opposition or abstentions, and so the motion carries.
Thank you.
Commissioners, before you is a copy of the resolution number 2428, where the Housing Authority of the City of Atlanta, Georgia seeks authorization of business terms to submit a mixed finance proposal and Faircloth to RAD application to the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development, and provide a loan commitment and Faircloth to RAD project-based voucher assistance commitment to support the 9% low-income housing tax credit application for 1 Peachtree.
Cool. May I have a motion to consider Resolution 2428?
So move.
All right. I think that was moved by Commissioner Alvarado and seconded by Commissioner Elliott. Mike Wilson, your turn again, sir.
Hello again. Lisa told you about the authorizations. The main points I would call to are our loan commitment of $3,450,000, and we're providing a form of rental service subsidy through the Faircloth to RAD program. I'll talk a little more about that in a minute. And we'll need to provide a mixed finance proposal at some time to HUD to facilitate the closing. Next slide, please. So this is an interesting project. Invest Atlanta recently purchased several downtown parcels near underground Atlanta for future redevelopment. One of them is a former office building known as 2 Peachtree. It's a high-rise office building. There's an adjacent building to that known as 44 Marietta Street. And then there's a plaza across the street from it, which is known as 1 Peachtree Street. So to facilitate the redevelopment of all that, they solicited potential development partners, and they selected a group actually led by the Integral Group in this case as their development partner. And I want to point out, and let's go to the next slide, but this is one of the mayor's strategic initiatives. He's trying to demonstrate that you can take an office building and convert it to housing, which is sort of a new concept. Next slide, please, Angela. So to give you an idea of where we're talking about, that's 2 Peachtree highlighted in blue there. And there's a smaller building to the right of that you can see. That's what's known as 44 Marietta Street. Now, to the right, I guess to the left of 2 Peachtree, that's actually the 5 Point MARTA station. Across the street from that is underground Atlanta. There's a little garage right across the street from 2 Peachtree, and there's a plaza right in front of it. And in fact, next slide, please. The plaza is what's known as 1 Peachtree, and that's a picture of the garage itself and the little plaza. Next slide, please. So the first phase is going to be a residential building for seniors. They're planning to apply for 9% tax credits in May. We had to really be able to respond to this very quickly and do more of an expedited approval. Well, although we did do that, we had a lot of time, I want to point out we'd spent a lot of time discussing it with some of our partners, Invest Atlanta. I see Vicki Robertson sitting here, and we had a number of conversations about this, as well as AUDC and John Majors. So the proposed senior building is going to consist of 65 units and a mix of 18 studios and 47 one-bedrooms, all of which will be affordable to tenants at 60% of AMI. The partner would be called 1 Peachtree Partners LP. The general partner would be 1 Peachtree Partners GP LLC. Next slide, please. And that's what they imagine the building to look like. So they're able to build that on the little plaza that we just looked at before, and the garage would remain right there behind it. Next slide, please. So Integral submitted an application for our co-investment fund. Again, I talked about we did an expedited approval, and so we're looking to do a loan of $3,450,000, be at 1% simple interest, construction term of 24 years, permanent term of 45 years for a total of 47. Payments during the construction period will be interest only, and during the permanent period, they will be based on 25% of net cash flow. Next slide, please. Integral also submitted an application to our Faircloth to RAD program. That's something fairly new that we're doing, and under that, the units will first be developed as public housing units, and once they reach operations phase, they'll be able to convert to project-based Section 8 under the RAD program administered by HUD. They've requested Faircloth to RAD rental assistance for all 65 units, not to exceed a level of 80% area median income. And we actually will probably end up coming up a little bit lower than that. Next slide, please. The permanent sources, again, they're going to have a mix of public and private sources, including a private first mortgage. They're estimating at $3,250,000. Our loan of $3,450,000. They're getting a loan from Invest Atlanta in the amount of $1 million. Their tax credit equity is 11.3, 11.4, 6.9 million of state tax credit equity. They're looking to defer a certain amount of deferred developer fee to balance out the sources and uses. And the total amount is about a little under $26 million. Next slide, please. That's the sources and uses in a little more detail. Again, I'll call your attention to our loan of $3,450,000. Next slide, please. That's the unit mix in a little more detail. Next slide. And I'll pause right there and see if you have any questions.
What does Faircloth to RAD mean?
So there was a Senator Faircloth back in the day, and he established that every housing authority can only produce so many public housing units. And so that's what we call a Faircloth limit. Now, over the years, we've torn down a lot of old public housing units, so we have the capacity to build more. So HUD has said you could build up to that limit if you want to. And then understanding is once you build those new public housing units, you convert them through the RAD program to project-based Section 8. That gives us another tool to create rental subsidy. Thank you. You're welcome.
I have a comment and a question. One, love to see, did I jump in front of you?
I think they're just laughing at my answer, but go ahead.
We're writing jokes up there. All right, so I just want to clarify that I'm understanding correctly. It will be limited to residents earning less than 60%
Yes.
AMI. We will pay rents up to 80 to help support the cost of new
That's right.
development. So I think that's an important distinction.
And by the way, that's an exception that we made. We normally would provide 60%, but in this case, and due to the circumstances, the costs and all that, to be able to make the deal work, we're looking at a little higher level than that.
I just wanted to elevate that as who we're serving versus the financial mechanism. I think that's really important, and applaud the creativity to help justify the cost of new construction these days. Two, great to see a corner that really doesn't have any activity become activated in the downtown, so that's really encouraging to see. And because I haven't spent a lot of time with our co-investment fund, I'm just curious, the 25% of net cash flows, is there a repayment horizon of that? Are we expecting to be able to recycle those dollars at some point, or does that stay in for such a long period of time that we kind of can't count on that?
So our
coming back to
expectation
us?
is to be repaid, and it's through that share of net cash flow, which we expect will amount to, over the term of the loan, to actually repay our loan. Now, once we receive that, it becomes what we call program income, and then we have to invest that in new housing activity, affordable housing activity.
So, but it will be the duration of the loan that we will get repayment?
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
So I wasn't sure I was clear about the one part. So the one Peachtree Senior concept is a new build,
It is.
and that is in front of what the space on one Peachtree?
Can we go back to that slide, maybe?
Yeah, I was just trying to conceptualize
I
where.
went through it kind of quickly, so.
So like in this little, like in that little, yeah,
Back a couple more.
Peachtree site? So it's in front of that little.
That's actually a garage, parking garage there.
Right.
And that would remain, and so the plaza is where one Peachtree would be constructed.
Got it. Understood now.
In fact, if you were standing on this corner, you're looking at Underground Atlanta to the right. In fact, you can see there was formerly a Walgreens that just moved out,
Yeah, the Walgreens is
right where the Coca-Cola sign.
right across the street.
Yeah.
Got it. That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right. We putting all the people right there. Might want to reconsider Walgreens. All right. CVS, there's a space. There's a space available. Sarah put it in my head to say that. All right.
Mr. Chairman, I do have one question about I'm familiar with.
Yes.
And so I'm curious as to how will that parking deck be hopefully positively impacted by having the senior building? I know it's not part of our property, but let me just say that when I've gone downtown, I've used that parking lot, and I would like it to be, whoever owns that, just for the sake of our people, I'd like for there to be there should be some significant upgrades to ensure the safety and well-being of our people.
So my understanding is Invest Atlanta is planning to purchase that parking deck as well, and they're planning a number of improvements to it once they acquire it.
That's excellent. Thank you.
Love it. Love it. Awesome. Any other comments or questions?
Mr. Chairman, I just want to say I want to be sure that the public knows that the Atlanta Housing Authority Board does not officially endorse one pharmaceutical operation.
Hey, thank you. The legal structure of your household is coming through in spades. I appreciate that. Understood. Fair enough. Awesome. If we have no other comments, I will call for the vote. All in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? No extensions. The motion is carried. And this concludes the resolutions to be presented to the board at this meeting. I also did not effectively mention that Commissioner Hooker has joined the meeting. We are always happy to see you here. There are no executive sessions scheduled. I'm not sure that there are any other reports, so we will turn it over to our President and CEO, Terry Lee.
So it seems as if the entire room got quiet all of a sudden. But good afternoon to our AH Board of Commissioners, our AH team members, as well as the general public joining us in person as well as online. I am Terry Lee, the President and CEO of Atlanta Housing. I would like to thank the Atlanta Housing team members for the work that was put forth today that really moves forward with our strategic plan. When you think about the actions that this board has just approved, just today alone, you have continued the support of our Bowen Homes Choice Neighborhood Implementation Grant. And that is so critically important to and catalytic for affordability on the west side. But in addition, from a development and a preservation standpoint, our actions really approved a total of 533 units right here today, of which about 65% of those units will be deemed affordable. When we think about the affordability aspect, Atlanta Housing is directly incentivizing 232 of those units, and we're doing it two ways, one through our capital investment as well as through our home flex subsidy. And as you know, in order to keep a unit permanently affordable for a family, you really have to have that operating assistance. And so we'll be providing up to $3 million worth of operating assistance for the units that were approved today. Total development costs for the entire actions taken by this board was right around $123 million. Total development costs for the actions taken by this board today was a total of $123 million with a 17% capital investment from Atlanta Housing. I think we all deserve a round of applause. And with that in mind, we just on last week closed on the first phase of Inglewood. Something tells me that was Dee Dee clapping. But that project is going to be so critically important. And the first phase is really around senior housing. And we're looking to do a total of 160 units, and those 160 units will all be affordable. We will be coming back to you this summer to announce the closing of the multifamily component of Inglewood. And so if you didn't believe we're moving, we're moving. I am also very pleased to talk about the fact that this board approved an action in November of 2023 to move forward with developing fresh food access at our Layla Valley site. 2 weeks ago, we held a pop-up market with Food Well Alliance, really bringing back our former residents as well as community residents to give them access to fresh food, farming tips, as well as we had a book exchange and we had a pop-up market. And I will tell you, it was heavily attended. We did it on a Friday evening. The residents were happy, and the former residents are really grateful for the actions that we're taking. And more importantly, they're grateful for being included as we move forward with the actions here at Atlanta Housing. And then you'll see we met with our resident association leaders. We were fortunate enough right here in this room in Roosevelt Hall to host our resident association leaders, and we were joined by our chairman at that event. During that event, we were able to swear in all of our new officers. That's our president, vice president, secretary, as well as treasurer. And we were joined by the Chief Judge Portis to swear in our resident leaders. After the swearing in, and after they gave us back their attention because everybody was so swayed with Chief Judge Portis, we were able to conduct a training. And that training was really important because we want to make sure that our resident leaders are equipped to be able to handle the governance of their properties in the correct and proper manner. So we talked about how to conduct a meeting, how to basically look at the ethical aspect of the associations, and budgeting. What does it look like for an association budget? I want to thank our two resident commissioners for their continued support, their continued guidance, and quite honestly, their continued chastisement because they just make us better. And they make sure that we're doing what we need to do in order to support our residents. And then on yesterday, I had some fun. I think I had more fun than the staff did, than the team members did. On yesterday, we celebrated AH Green Day. And what's so exciting about that to me, and what makes me so proud of our team, is that Atlanta Housing has had a sustainability initiative for probably about 3 to 4 years now. That is a 100% volunteer-led effort of our team members. 100% volunteer-led effort of our team members. And at Atlanta Housing, we say sustainability is affordability, because we know that if we're able to reduce the cost on the back end, we're also able to make sure we maintain affordability for our residents. And so yesterday, we were joined by our partners at South Face, Ford, the City of Atlanta, Nissan was there, Live Charm was there, as well as so many others to really lift up the sustainability initiative. We were sustainable and frugal because we had it in our garage, but there were there were food trucks, there were soil testing. People could bring soil from home and have it tested. And the 17 members of Atlanta Housing that meet on a biweekly basis, we were able to not only thank them, but commend them and provide a token of our appreciation through a Pike gift card, a certificate, and they would have a glass figurine to place on their desk. Now, everyone in the agency wants to join the sustainability team, and we're really excited. And I want to especially thank Paul Vanerka as well as Trish O'Connell, because they have led that effort from the senior leadership team perspective, and I really appreciate all that they do to lift up our team as we really work together to make sure that we have a sustainable Atlanta, not just for today, but tomorrow as well. And last but definitely not least, I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge this moment. Probably about in 2017, Atlanta Housing was really fortunate for an individual to decide to come over to help us out. And it was after 32 years of a decorated and very impactful career with Invest Atlanta. At the time when Ernestine Gary came over to Atlanta Housing, I think she was only supposed to stay a year. And she was here to serve as the senior policy advisor for then Catherine Buell, the chief executive officer. And we have been so blessed and immensely grateful to Ernestine for the value that she's brought to Atlanta Housing over the years. With that being said, Ernestine has decided to retire in September of this year. And again, we are grateful. We will have a chance to celebrate her, but I just could not let this moment leave without us just acknowledging as a family the contributions that Ernestine has made to Atlanta Housing. Will you please join me? Now, because she has a history of retiring and coming back, we do expect to see her again in January of 2025. Thank you for allowing me to share my report. Are there any questions of me at this time? Awesome. Thank you again for your service.
All right. Thank you, CEO Lee DeCho, as I like to call her. So before we get to an adjournment, any other comments or questions from our fellow commissioners? All right, well, I will give two things. One, I just want to piggyback on both the resident, the swearing in ceremony and the presentation. I said it directly, but I'll just say it publicly. Morgan Johnson did a fantastic job in leading that day. They gave me some homework to kind of read over the materials, and then when I got in there, there was stuff in there that wasn't even just about how to run a meeting, but it was about communication, and so much so I had to give it to my wife and say, hey, you might want to look at some of this stuff. And so Morgan just said to check this out, and so hopefully it will help my happy home and my ability to communicate with my wife. So it was well done. So thank you for that. I also did get a message just for the Green Day from Chandra Farley, the Chief Sustainability Officer, and telling me how much she enjoyed AH's Green Day. And so I just want to say for all those who were involved that your work was not done in vain. It was very much received well. So thank you guys for all of that. And I also want to say, I know that I think it was today or yesterday, it was like Administrative Assistance Day. And so Angela Wallace, thank you for all that you do for us. We appreciate it. I'm going to reach in my pocket before I leave, make sure you're taken care of. And so with that, I don't think I have anything else. If there's no further business of the board, may I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So move.
All right. So moved by Commissioner Alvarado and seconded by Commissioner Elliott. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. I know I didn't hear any opposition to that, so the meeting is adjourned. The time is 2:51 p.m.